Alright, not planning on... Well, I'm not expecting. I'm expecting to call for friends, so I'm not expecting this to be a hugely long thing. But yeah, we'll see. I noted that yesterday it took me about 2 hours to get up to the, well, more or less near crux to the Ronin mission. Let's also make certain I have Discord online muted. I do. And let's go. So yeah, wow. For those who don't know, I've been doing a research project with a research group at my university. And yeah, I've spent a lot of time. It's on the topic of meta lenses, which are it's on taking on the topic of ultra thin lenses, which basically the challenge is to say, okay, these are lenses normally, like the kind of curved things. Okay, can we use all the stuff we know about the propagation of light to make them work better? And can we do that in, well, as the name ultra thin lens would suggest, as thin an area as possible, or as thin a volume as possible? And the answer is somewhat. If I'm honest, there are certain things that really you can't actually do that well, but there are other ones you can do significantly better. And there are, yeah, they have some useful properties. They have some really annoying properties as well. And I've kind of spent most of my time recently wrestling with those. But I bring this up because recently I've been doing this and I've kind of, I don't know, I've been feeling as though, I don't know, I was having a limited amount of success, and in part that was because, well, the thing I was trying to do was near enough impossible. I've mentioned this before on one of these type videos, but I was trying to basically build an achromatic lens, and turns out, which means basically it focuses light the same no matter what color it is. It turns out that's really, really difficult, or at least it's difficult to do in a thin fashion. Basically, the more achromatic it gets, the thicker it gets, more or less. I found a couple of ways around it, but nothing that's either A, satisfying, or I like Brie, or B, practically realisable at the moment, which is a bit of a disappointment. However, I kind of recently started looking into the literature. Started working out, okay, if all of these ideas are more or less impossible, what are other ideas that people have had? What other kind of things are out here to be looked into? And I've actually been finding some interesting results, which has been really nice. People have, I mean, it kind of makes sense, but I don't know. This is something that I feel I didn't really check hugely in. Okay, partially, yes, it's a 10-week project. I can be excused for not checking all of the background out hugely. But honestly, the field feels somewhat stagnant. Or, that's not true. I'm getting good at lying. The field doesn't quite feel stagnant, but what it feels like is that the challenge of building a thin lens that works the same as any other lens has more or less been done about as well as it can be. You could attempt to make incremental improvements, but they would be just that. They would be very much incremental. And yeah, this is something that obviously no one writes about, right? Because you don't write especially if you're trying to write a grant application. You've spent the last several years working in meta lenses. You're trying to write a grant application. If you've just written in a publication somewhere something saying, wow, that would have been a very short time to die. If you just wrote in a publication somewhere something saying, oh yeah, actually meta lenses can't do all these things, well, you're not going to get funding. And then you'll be out of a job. So yeah, there's a very, very strong incentive for people not to talk about whether or not the field is really going anywhere. And in my opinion, it has reached, in trying to be as good at a glass lens, at what a glass lens does, meta lenses aren't actually that cut out for it. I would say this in contrast to doing other things, because I think they have really, really interesting power for other things. So something my supervisor showed me today. Wow, I'm taking damage like nobody's business here. Something my supervisor showed me today was a paper by one research group that was basically saying normally you lose out a fair amount of intensity from a lens because, well, the way lenses detect colour is they focus the light down onto an image plane. Hey, that's not bad. Oh wait, no, I thought I just got the oh, I did just get one of those. Oh, okay. Huh. Good to know. Yeah, the way typical cameras work is they focus light down onto an image plane, and typically that image plane is covered with photodiodes, and basically on top of those photodiodes you put colour filters, and the colour filters only let one particular colour of light through, because photodiodes don't really respond differently, or not, at least not usefully differently, to different wavelengths of light. They can't tell them apart, more or less. Now, they do respond differently, like different frequencies will get a different response, but that's not useful if the response for lots of blue light is indistinguishable from the response for a very little amount of red light. And so basically, you don't use those. Well, basically the idea is, yeah, you don't try and design a photodiode that's really good at this. What you try and do instead is design a photodiode that is pretty good across loads and loads and loads of wavelengths of light. At the very least, you know how good it is and can calibrate based off of it. And because you know how it works across all these wavelengths of light, what you can then do is say, all right, let's just put a filter in front of it. If the filter only lets through green light, I know the intensity coming from this photodiode must all be due to green light. I can make the green pixel on your screen that bright. That's the standard way these things work. However, one suggestion, which a group came up with recently, is what if instead you made a lens that focused light periodically? So it would focus, say, for instance, red light onto a particular photodiode. So you'd have like the red and green photodiodes, or where you would normally have like red filters on top of the photodiode, you wouldn't have a filter, you just have the lens direct all the red light to that one, and vice versa, and not vice versa, and similar for all the other colours, and you then get your colour information that way, which I thought was a really clever thing, and that's something that is more or less entirely impossible to do with classical lenses. And so this would be a brilliant application of meta lens technology. However, just trying to act as an existing lens, honestly, I think if people put all the effort that is going into nanotechnology into just, I don't know, making the glass lenses thinner, I think there'd be more success. Or not making the glass lenses thinner, sorry, but not aiming for truly ultra-thin lenses. He says as someone who's just submitted something on ultra-thin lenses, so like, I am not free of sin. But it's it's something quite interesting, and I wasn't really aware of this. And so, honestly, what I'm working on at the moment is saying, okay, this is awful. This is awful. Like, with the current material constraints I have, I cannot do that which I'm trying to do. Like, with the current material constraints, I don't think building a lens of the sort I'm aiming for is possible. And so I started looking at, okay, what other options are there out there? Because presumably I'm not the first person to look into this, or to kind of think, okay, we're limited by constraints. And there are lots of things basically saying, okay, plasmonic, yeah, so there are two main ways you can do something, and basically they have their pros and cons. One is you can design like these. You can design these meta lenses using metals, and metals, well, they have the upside that light gets trapped in a very, very thin layer. It's known as a surface plasmon in metals, and because light's trapped in this very, very thin layer, your life's made pretty easy if you want to make light do stuff on a small scale, if you want to control it in a small scale, because you can basically funnel the light into circuits. You can design nano circuits on the face of your lens such they interact with the light in exactly the way you want, and that's brilliant. The issue is the fact that, well, they're metals, and although metals might seem like great conductors, on the scales we're talking, they're awful. Well, they're not awful, but they absorb more than enough energy for it to cause problems. And basically, them absorbing energy means, well, it means it's really hard to do two things. One of the things that's really hard to do is it's really hard to get like 100% transmission from them, because, well, you basically can't, because they lose so much energy when they're in use. But and they absorb so much of the light that hits them, because, well, they're metals. You know intuitively that light doesn't pass through metals very well. And then there's the alternative option, which is you can go for dielectrics, which are basically like glass. They're things that light gets through pretty well. They have some refractive index. For those who don't know, refractive index is basically just how light bends when it goes inside, when it enters a medium. So it's the reason swimming pools with water in appear shallower than those without. I've now got to consider if it's shallower or deeper, and I can't be bothered to, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's the reason they appear at different depths, and I think they appear shallower. I don't remember the maths as to how you show it, and I remember it's non-trivial. I remember it's like based on some approximations that actually you wouldn't instantly assume necessarily. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've looked at it. I looked at the maths for that, but yeah. No, I'm not over there. That was actually quite risky. I noticed that I'm still being pushed around, I think, by the mech quick builds, by the mech turret quick builds, which is very, very interesting, because, like, possible route to still have quips, maybe? If you could get, let's just double check. Yeah, I get pushed backwards by that. So you can potentially still clip out of bounds if you can maneuver a mech into the right place. It's going to get a lot harder, but still possible. Because you definitely are getting pushed back there. I will check with DLU as to whether or not their implementation of stuff was live accurate. I will also look at videos, see if I can find a bit in a Jamester video where he builds a mech, and see if this appears to be live accurate. Because if so, that'd be a useful way of still getting an out of bounds clip. Oh, and I've got enough Maelstrom bricks. Did I not get one? I don't think I did. Early Game Ninja really hasn't been paying attention. But that's fine. Early Game Ninja doesn't have to. It's Late Game Ninja that really needs to. Possibly shouldn't have sold that one. I can buy it back then, can't I? That would be an easy solution to that problem. Never do that mission. Always keep them in my inventory. Don't know why. Sorry to clarify, that was not an imperative. You are free to do that mission if you so choose. I just don't, normally. Certainly not in hardcore EU runs. It's kind of pointless. It's a small, easy fetch quest mission that just takes time, and it's safe. So there's no real point to doing it unless you've done all of the... Unless you've reached that stage where you're convinced, okay, I've done now all of the hard stuff that I plan to do. Or all of the stuff that brings with it a risk of death. Yeah. But yeah, so I've basically, what I did today then was just go and start reading in the literature and just try and work out what other possibilities there are. And this wasn't just today, this was also yesterday. Oh yeah, I didn't actually fully describe the two problems with using metals. One of them is that metals are... yeah, one of the downsides of metals, and one of their fundamental downsides is that discussed before. Wait a second, is this a... Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves not one, but two shiny boys, I think. Actually, there are a load. Like, this whole thing's quite a shiny... Whoa. Okay, I should actually... I don't know if this counts as sufficiently shiny. I don't remember how shiny the other shiny boy was, but this looks very shiny to me. I would say this does class as a shiny boy. If I were asked in my capacity as an expert on shiny boys to judge whether or not that's a shiny boy, I would call it a shiny boy, I think. Anyway. Yeah, I'll make this. Yeah, so the second problem is what's known as a quality factor, which is basically, quite often, in order to control light in the way I want to control it, I want to have something that does one thing at a particular frequency and does something else at a different frequency. And frequencies corresponding to colours when it comes to light. And basically there's a bit of an issue there, because, well, there's certainly a bit of an issue if you use metals, because if you use metals, basically what happens is, because of this fact of the metal that it loses energy, what this means is that, well, yeah, the metals basically, there's a complicated mathematical reason, it's the truth. I don't understand it. Not entirely. Well, I've actually come to understand it a lot better recently. But basically, basically you have a thing that if you want to control something very nicely, it really helps if its properties. It really helps if, like, if I'm trying to design something that, like, does one thing at a particular frequency and not at the frequency next to it, so I can kind of control different frequencies independently, it really helps to have, like, the way my thing acts really, really sharply peaked at that particular frequency, so it doesn't do anything with nearby frequencies. That's kind of the aim. And the issue is that the fact that metals lose energy, that is equivalent to basically saying they have what's known as a low quality factor. And what this low quality factor means, more or less, is that their peaks tend to be quite wide in frequency space. Yeah, basically, they tend to, if I do something, yes, it will work for green, but it will also cause problems for red. Like, I can't do something to green without doing something to red as well, is more or less the issue of metals. Which should make some degree of sense. Most metals have a tendency to be quite monochromatic. It's not the case for gold, as, well, given the fact we use gold to denote a yellowish colour, it's obviously not the case for gold. Gold, basically, at some point in the visible spectrum, it goes past what's known as its plasma frequency, and basically its behaviour changes at that point in time. But note that it appears gold, and the reason why it appears gold is because basically it just takes everything, it just gets rid of everything from its spectrum that's above a certain point. And so, yes, there might be a reasonably sharp, like, jump in the transmission spectrum from transmitting everything to suddenly transmitting nothing, but you still get to the other side, and on either side of it, it's still quite broadband. And honestly, you could argue whether or not the peak is that sharp. The issue basically being, yeah, this is really, really hard to work with. And so and dielectrics, they basically suffer from the problem that they can get quite sharp peaks, but they're really hard to control. And I've basically started trying to take a look at, okay, can you maybe do a bit of both? Could I get the benefits of a dielectric, i.e. that it's mostly transparent, it doesn't lose that much energy, which means it has the potential to be sharply peaked, and potentially I could tune where those sharp peaks are. Could I get all the benefits of that without getting kind of the corresponding losses? Yeah, without getting all those losses that I might expect just because I don't have much control over it. Like, basically, yeah. Is there a way? I either get losses because I inherently have losses, or I get losses because I can't control it as well as I would like. And so the question is, can I make something that's very, very, very sharply peaked, whilst also taking up a very, very small volume in frequency space? And this, honestly, I'm uncertain whether or not I will have time to do anything interesting in this area, or certainly by the end of my 10 weeks, by the time I would kind of like to have done something ideally paper-worthy. That's actually really, really concerning now I think about it, that I am halfway through week 6, and I'm still kind of uncertain as to whether or not what I'll get is paper-worthy. That's actually really scary. Great, I didn't really want to think about that. Now I am. I'm blaming every single one of you for watching. I'm just going to run through and get heart flags. But yeah, so there's some really, really interesting stuff. Which is one of the things I began to realise is that dielectrics and dielectric resonators have the potential to be extremely sharply peaked. However, actually in practice, they also tend not to be that sharply peaked, which is kind of odd, right? I said they didn't. I said that what brought into peak was the fact that it lost energy, and I've told you that dielectrics don't lose energy, so why is the, or don't, yeah, absorb light, so why is the loss, how can the losses be high? And the answer to this is actually really, really cool, which is that all of this theory regarding, like, the shape of, like, how these things behave at different frequencies, most of the intuition for this is based around based around taking a pendulum, for instance. I always, if I'm explaining what I do to someone, I always find something nearby me that's roughly pendulum shaped, somewhat pendulous in some sense. Be it a pen, whatever. I'm really loose on what I count as enough like a pendulum. And I'll basically show that, or yeah, the classic example for explaining resonance is a swing, which is that if you try and push someone too quickly, nothing will happen. If you try and push someone too slowly, nothing will happen. The way you get going higher in a swing is you swing your feet at the right point and at a specific speed. And as long as you swing your feet at the right speed, then you'll go higher. But if you don't swing them at the right speed, you're never going to get any higher. And so basically, well, the thing with that analogy is that that's quite simple when compared to light. And the real difference with light is that, well, light's a wave, which means unlike someone sitting on a swing, if someone's sitting on a swing, we've got a driving force. That's okay. There's an analogy I can draw. Their driving force is like the incoming beam of light, and the swing is like my resonator. However, there's one really huge difference, which is that my swing, well, my swing has there's nowhere else for the energy to go but into the swing, or if the swing has lossy components, into those. But like, energy's always going to go. This is not the fastest route, by the way. Energy has to go into the spring, there's nowhere else it can go. Whereas with light, well, the energy can go out the other side. And so, whilst I can say, oh yeah, dielectrics should have brilliant Q factors because they don't lose energy, well, that's not quite true. They don't absorb energy, but they can just let energy out the other side. And so how do you really, really confine the energy? And how do you also try and get control of that on a really, really small scale? And that seems insanely difficult. So I started doing more research into, I'm trying to think where I'm going, into basically, I guess one might say no. One should not say hyperfine, because that has a particular meaning. I was going to say hyperfine spectral peaks, but basically graphs of how much my swing moves versus the frequency at which I push the swing, how sharp the peak is where the swing works really nicely. Ideally, I want something where the swing works really well for one particular peak and does literally nothing for anything else. And it turns out people have actually made some progress in this area. And they've found what are known as, well, they're known as various things. One of them is bound states in the continuum. But basically, what they found is that it's really quite hard. Wait a second, did I did not get the extra heart flag. I did not get the extra heart point. What heart flag did I miss? Yeah, seriously, if I missed the one, which I'm now concerned I might have done, if I missed the one outside of the Paradox lab, I'm going to be... That is literally the most obvious flag in the entire game. Really shows I should pay more attention when I'm doing these runs. But yeah. Basically, the really clever idea is, what if you had something that normally you can't use? Because imagine you had something that doesn't... Oh, I know which one I missed. Imagine you had something that doesn't interact with its surroundings. Well, if your swing doesn't interact with its surroundings, sure, it can't lose energy to its surroundings, but also, how do you push it? You can't. And so what people came up with was quite a clever idea of combining what are known as light and dark modes. There are various things this is called in literature, but basically you have something that doesn't interact with the surroundings. That's called your dark mode, dark because it doesn't interact with light. And you have something that does interact with your surroundings. That's called your light mode. And you design it in such a way that whilst the dark mode won't interact with normal light, it will interact with your light mode. And basically, this means that the only way in and out for energy is through the light mode. And that basically gives you some insane control, because effectively at this stage you've got almost 2 swings. The analogy really breaks down at this stage. You've always got 2 swings like connected up to one another, and you can't push the bottom one. You can only push the one on top. But yeah, okay, no, the analogy just really breaks down. But it's really cool and quite exciting, and it's nice because it actually happened to fall quite in line with some of the other work I've been doing, which was very nice. And so potentially, I'm really excited about seeing if I can control these known as bound state and continuum, also known as BIC modes. And yeah, they seem really interesting. But with that said, it is now time to call my friend. So thank you all very, very much for watching. But intro you, I'll continue. Actually, why am I saying this? I'll continue this in about a second because I'll edit the 2 clips together. So see you in a second. So, alright, yeah, the genuinely amazing has happened, and I've somewhat maintained my train of thought between a cut. Or between a cut and a thing or whatever, I don't know. Words. Yeah, and I realised that whilst quickly trying to wrap things up there, I actually failed entirely to say the one thing which I kind of found really interesting, was surprised by, which is something I found I hadn't actually been doing much of during this entire thing, which was basically, I hadn't been necessarily, I hadn't been learning, hugely new topics. I've been learning where the field stood and everything, but I haven't been learning hugely new topics in this area. And it was so nice to kind of sit down today and actually, what I spent today doing with these, this problem, or these problems and with lenses and everything, is I basically sat down and was like, okay, I'm going to learn as much as I can about resonance and how all of these things work. And it's a really complicated thing I hadn't understood, and it turns out still somewhat an active area of research. But it was really, I don't know, there's something I find so rewarding about learning something. And this is interesting, right? From the perspective of the thing I said the other day about the dream job. Because, interestingly, I found this so much more rewarding than designing. Then, I found, I don't know, maybe part of what I was disliking with the job, well, maybe that was due to circumstance. Discussing relationships and the fact that relationships being stressful otherwise is largely due to external circumstances, and using relationships as an analogy for a job, well, then presumably a job should be largely dependent on external circumstances. I'd argue, well, whether or not this counts external circumstances, it was the particular thing I was trying to do. But it's good to know that arguably that feeling of, hey, this is impossible, was actually somewhat related to, well, or just not feeling brilliant about it was actually related to something underlying. Which more or less was the fact that, hey, this thing actually wasn't possible. And now I'm sitting here after today and kind of feeling like, okay, I have learnt seriously a ton of stuff. And I guess the nice thing is that it feels like my options are further open than they were before today. It feels like there's far more stuff I can do. One of the things I didn't go into a huge amount of depth about was, because I was trying to wrap things up, was these really, really, really spiky graphs, effectively, that I get from, combining these 2 different resonances, or these two different peaks. These, really, really spiky graphs. Why are they so good? Well, I didn't have a great reason for why they were going to be so good starting this. They honestly looked really limited, because like all of the existing stuff in the literature, they were like, aha, we've got these really, really spiky graphs, but we have basically no control over them whatsoever. Like, they do one thing really, really well. That's more or less about it. It's kind of like, okay, that's not so good. And I mean, there's a large extent to which I still have that problem with them. But what's quite nice is actually the current area of research I was working in, or like the current idea I was working in for my previous design might actually turn out to be very, very, very applicable. I don't know yet. Not good enough at the simulation stuff and anything like that, but it actually, it feels like there is some mathematical grounding to assume it might be. And to me, it feels quite exciting. Whether or not literally any of you care about this is a whole other question. But I guess bringing it to a more general point, one thing I hugely philosophize about with relationships, and this is again not just romantic relationships but all sorts of relationships, is that as people we have a tendency, I would argue it's probably driven by some sort of instinct to keep society working as well as possible, we're driven to brush things under the carpet. And we're driven to kind of forget and forgive shortcomings and stuff like that. And I think that's a quite fundamental thing to the way we work in relationships. And to some extent, that's a great thing. Because, like, if you did just get hung up on a single thing and you can never move past it, even if the person has completely changed, well, then you'd never get anywhere in life. You'd still be stuck holding grudges with someone from 5 years ago. But on the other hand, it does have a really, really huge issue, which is that it can be, which is that people can just get used, or people can just brush bad stuff under the carpet, and it can just become a new normal. And that way it's a case of people can end up being really not very happy, but still just kind of going along with it. And I know I've had this at points, but I also know other people who have. It's kind of like, it's something which, alright, my sample size still isn't too large, but it's something which I don't think is just me, in that I think it is quite easily possible to have a relationship which is actively making one unhappy, and to not realise, and to put it, and to be like, ah, yes, but this is the relationship I wanted to have, or like, stuff like that. And the reason why I find this funny and bring it up now is the analogy between relationships and a job you actually care about. I arguably think that was what was happening with me and looking at physics. My feeling down about it previously, I think, was a function of something being wrong, and the thing that was wrong was I was trying to do the impossible, and was putting a lot of pressure on myself to do the impossible. I mean, like, to some extent I worked this out, but I think it's a similar concept, this phenomenon in relationships, which is, I stand by it being really interesting that phenomena in relationships and jobs are so interesting. And I guess I argued the other night that perhaps relationships, like, that I thought there was, I guess, an emotional core to all relationships. And so maybe I'd argue, again, this also very much goes for jobs you deeply care about. This doesn't go for, like, a job you just do for money, but which I guess arguably probably the best sort of job. But I'd argue it's, a job you care about. Why do you care about it? If you care about it rather than just enjoy it, it's probably because, well, why would you care about it? it's because it's to some extent a purpose, and typically that's because it has some value to society. And so there should be a really good reason why there are lots of parallels between relationships and society, or sorry, relationships and jobs, and that's because, well, a job is just a part of your relationship with society as a whole, which is evolutionarily related to pretty much every other relationship you have. But also, when I start saying this, I really, really, really feel like I sound like one of those people who is just coming up with a crackpot theory on the spot. Like, I have really just... If you take this out of context, it's just, yes, relationships, jobs, everything, it's the same. It's one simple concept, and it's like, no, the human mind's never that simple. Like, it can't... All of this is definitely not that simple. I think it's potentially a case of me noticing, hey, these things share a core, and therefore extrapolating that, they are the same in all ways, which, I mean, obviously isn't the case. And I guess that's something to be said about overgeneralizations. And, of course, if I just want to go full circle, overgeneralizations say rather a lot about society, because that's how we understand people we don't have the time to get to know. And that's how we understand concepts we don't have the time to get to know, overgeneralizations. And the greatest concept that most people don't spend time getting to know is other people. And again, that is not a jibe at people for not getting to know other people. It's just our brains honestly can't handle it, as I believe research has shown. You're not gonna... Okay. Wait, no, I probably don't want to... I still have 40 health kits. I must have picked up health kits, because I know I used at least one fighting spiderlings. I do also have quick skill in my inventory. I'm not gonna... I could get more, but I honestly feel like I have 6 firecrackers at the moment. That's quite a bit of wiggle room. Like, I know I'm good at mucking stuff up, but, like, that should be more than enough wiggle room. I might also turn off desktop audio, because I don't know if people hugely... like, really feel strongly about getting to listen to the in-game audio. Like, let me know whether you do or don't, but one thing I do, which I may well do for this, is, I won't do this during the Spider Queen fights, but I do tend to listen to other music whilst I play with you. That is not for a dislike of Brian Tyler's scores, but it's just... there are certain scores I've heard rather a lot of times. It's like Vaisky cannot listen to the Monument Foot race score anymore, basically, because he has heard that one so many hundreds of times. I also really should have done what I was planning on doing more of, which was streaming these. I totally forgot that I planned on doing that. Is jumping in the air sufficient to avoid that attack? Because I don't know. It would be, if it is, it would be a lot easier than jumping away. I will be able to test that. Well, I'm sure at some point. It seems unlikely that I wouldn't get a chance to. Wow, there's been twice in a row I've had to pull back. Oh, okay, that bugged out. Okay, so I was in the air that time. It could be a case of being in the air on the client versus the server as well. Because presumably that damage is decided on the server. Or at the very least is confirmed on the server. I could run away here, I possibly should. But I've started playing the Spider Queen a lot more riskily. I guess it's just relatively, like, I don't know, compared to a whole run of this, it's quite easy to get to. Am I going to be hit by that? No, I'm not. Okay, so go. Okay, so maybe I try and set this up in advance. Or I try and be really... You're going to run towards me? So that's actually not a bad strategy. It's deciding... It's, yeah, looking around and picking which one you want to attack. That was kind of... Yeah, it was a good move. Because I don't know if their range has been taken down. It feels like something about these spiderlings might have gotten a little bit easier. I wonder if DLU took their range down in recompense for their movement being more or less broken. Why does it sound like this has the Serratorizer noise underneath? Is it just me that sounds like that too? And that seemed like I was very, very close, and still didn't have any damage dealt to me, so... I don't know, sometimes. But yeah, I think I might be misremembering, but did 3 spawn last time I did this? I feel like they did, and I feel like I was quite pleased that I managed to beat 3, because normally that's really difficult. Okay, let's get a sense of where everything's going to be. 2 there, just 2. 3, great. Let's try and get over here before the others spawn. Okay, good. Now, ideally, I'd like to aggro just one of them. Yeah, I think they've definitely taken down their aggro range. No, okay, it's better to... I want to be certain I only aggro one of them, but I also want to have somewhere to go once I've aggroed that one. Okay, which is perfect for this. That was really bad. I'm hoping I should be... I really shouldn't have done this. That was actually... I nearly died there. You can't block the leg lunge attack. So yeah, I could. And the leg lunge attack does 2 damage, and I didn't have my health kit up. So I really, really could have died. One thing I can't tell if it would make these bosses more or less fun to do in runs would be a random element. Because, like, this and Butterscorch, I can just get into a rhythm. I can get into a rhythm, I can fairly easily, like, dodge attacks. Like, I know what the boss is going to do at more or less all points in time. I think the Spider Queen, actually, I don't know if she has a loop, because I'm more or less safe as long as I stand nearby, but I think Butterscorch would really benefit from some random numbers in there. Just because then there's a little bit more of actually having to react to stuff. Because I don't know. I feel like at the moment, for as cool as I think the Hardcore U Butterscorch challenge was, it was not difficult from like a mental and / gaming perspective. Like, well, no, it was, but not for the reasons that they were inherently difficult things I was trying to do. It was just getting insanely consistent at them. Consistent enough that I could do them over 100 times in a row. And, like, the level of consistency is quite hard, but the fundamental thing I was doing wasn't that difficult at all. Whereas having to react to stuff on the fly could be a lot more fun. I'd be really interested to see, I don't know, one thing I think would be really fun, I think that Crux Prime does quite well, is utilising terrain. But I do think, so I'm specifically thinking of Caldera Mar, or the area over the top of Caldera Mar. I think the terrain design is brilliant. I need to write a note to myself. Yeah, I think the terrain design over the top. I also need to close something. Yeah, terrain design is great because it's just more interesting. But what I would love is for a boss fight to take place on like moving platforms, or like ideally what I would like would be platforms spawning and despawning. I don't know how possible that would be. At least in ways that kind of mean they get out of sync with one another. That would be really, really cool. And like doing that in a boss fight, maybe a boss that isn't that strong, but is like really, but that like, I guess the way you'd implement it is not moves from platform to platform, but maybe teleports from platform to platform. Even if it's just stationary platform, and kind of attacks you as you move between platforms, or like does something to take out the platforms, that would be so cool. Or like, yeah, it doesn't even need to take out the platform, because again, that could be quite hard to do from a surface side, but what if you had an enemy that, yeah, would do attacks that were specifically targeted at platforms and jumps that might be a little more difficult to do? I think that would be really cool. Because I think, yeah, it's something that's been noted with existing bosses that, yeah, one thing, or yeah, with existing fighting mechanics in LU, is one thing that's done really well in LU is the movement. Like, movement feels pretty good in LU. You feel like you have a good amount of control over your character and all of that. One thing that feels less good is the fighting, because there's a lot of button mashing and standing still quite often. I personally don't know I buy that argument entirely, because what I do think is that I think there are tactics behind it. Like, you can get to learn, okay, how much time do I need to leave if I want to dodge an attack? And then attacks become dodgeable, and that does become a thing that you learn, especially doing hardcore LU, where like dodging attacks can be so important. You begin to get a sense of, okay, when should I stop attacking if I want to walk off? But there is quite a delay. But yeah, and I feel some of the stuff that gets raised, honestly, it feels nitpicky. It feels like some of the stuff, like the changes you're asking for, would change a lot about LU, and potentially some of them were put in purpose for a particular reason, such as cooldown groups, for instance. They're put in purpose in place so that you can't abuse using multiple things at the same time. For instance, they're put in place, yeah, so it's harder to get glitches that you might achieve by. Did I can't move my character. How did that happen? That was weird. Did I get my thinking cap on? Whatever it is, it seems almost certain to be a server-side bug rather than client-side, but... Well, there are arguably, and arguably is an important word, a couple of server-side bugs that you can't build a server to get around. More or less, kind of not, but also, like, you can always, in theory, try and trick the server. That's typically called hacking. I guess there's a question of, like, at what point of trying to trick the server does it become just cheating? And yeah. So, for instance, in the case of it's something that comes up with speedrunning, should DLU try to fix spring jumps? And, I mean, obviously my argument would be no, but I think I've got a reasonable argument in that they're spring jumps. They're the most expensive way to do something that will get you so little benefit. Because one of the things about LU is it's designed in, honestly, a sometimes annoyingly quite linear way. Like, you cannot go to harder places than... It's designed for kids, right? And they don't want kids accidentally stumbling into an area, getting lost there, getting spawn killed when they can't cope with it. So they do things like in the Great Tree, and before you can get to the Dragon area, before you can get to Brick Fury and all that stuff, you have to have demonstrated a certain amount of ability by smashing, and typically a certain amount of gear, by smashing a large number of Ronin, for instance. And the same with Crux Prime. It's all designed to prevent you going anywhere you shouldn't be able to. Or that you might not enjoy and might not know how to get back from. But because of that, because, like, it became a default in LU to kind of quest lock stuff, it's kind of... Lots and lots of things are quite heavily quest locked. And I'm not necessarily the hugest fan of that. But as a existing thing in LU, I don't know I'd want it to be changed. It would feel forced to suddenly change that. But doesn't mean newer worlds can't make use of like, kind of, I don't know, freeing things up a little bit in terms of quest chains. I do think that's one nice thing, and I don't think I've had anyone confirm whether this is live accurate or not, but I think it is. I'm kind of assuming it to be. The fact that in Gnarled Forest you can pick up, like, most of the missions, like, the person will send you to the next person along the mission chain, but you can get the mission beforehand if you walk ahead. And, like, I think that's an example of some reasonably nice design. There's rarely much purpose to it. There's a bit in hardcore LU, because if you can get to the pirate camp, you can get heart flags. There is rarely too much of an incentive to do so. Every time I do that, it scares me. I don't know why I keep doing that. Because one of these times, I can 100% guarantee you one of these times I will die to that. That is, for those of you who watch a particular streamer, my equivalent of an XD skip. Something that's... I guess technically that does save time, so it isn't quite an XD skip, but something that is more or less entirely pointless. And it certainly doesn't save much time, but it's become a joke. Or yeah, it's... I think the rules have to, are more or less, it needs to be something that is actually harder than doing it the normal way. But yes, anyway, I mentioned I was going to put some different music on. For myself, at any rate, I figure I might as well tell you all what music is going to be, so if you so choose to listen. Wait a second, have I had audio off for you guys? So, no, it's just really quiet. Huh, that's odd. So yeah, you guys can, if you so choose, put on the same. I very much enjoy me a little bit of video game music. Whether or not it's my favourite sort of music is another question entirely, but I am putting on Line Them Up, a Paper Mario the Origami King concert. Because I think they've got some bops in there. Okay, that's actually quite loud. And also, I haven't turned off LU's music yet. But yeah, so if you randomly hear me start singing to a song that definitely isn't LU, that'll be why. And if you can detect a touch of Mario in it, that would also be why. But yeah, so I guess the issue with this run now is I've now gotten it standard, like almost to the point of like 2 hours of gameplay has now become standard. So every single time I do a run, I have to do 2 hours of gameplay that is something I can do more or less easily, and if I fail it, it's more because I was trying to be clever or something. I wonder which faction is the best for speedrunning. Is eventually, or specifically, speedrunning to Crux Prime. Because I'm wondering, well, no, I think it's always got to be Venture, probably. I was saying that in the for the question of which one makes going around Nexus Tower the fastest. I think it's probably Sentinels. I'm not really, don't really care which one I pick. This is genuinely a bop. Just going to keep trying to use this book. Is that broken? I can still complete this mission. And it makes actually no difference to me whatsoever. But... because I can literally, if I need to, just chuck those in the vault. You also, I realise, might be able to hear the music through my earphones. It's the one thing I found really interesting is I spent a lot of time listening to this music, and then, like, I'd never heard any of the actual soundtrack for this game. And then I listened to some of the actual soundtrack, and there was one part, there were lots of parts where I could see, like, the arrangers done their own take on it, but, like, the main intro theme, or the theme that plays right at the start of this particular compilation, or this particular arrangement, it sounds, like, so identical. Like, there's the occasional trumpet note I can feel was hit slightly differently, but it's like, wow, you did a pretty good job. And I'm not saying that because, like, oh, I am trumpet player, I am so good at the trumpet. No, just because trumpet was the particular instrument that springs to mind. There were, I don't even know if it was trumpet notes. I think I did hear some, but there were just a couple of things that were played slightly differently. But like the arrangement was so nearly identical. It was very impressive, very cool. This is possibly... I possibly shouldn't have put this music on, because I now will just want to whistle and just hum along to it. Yeah, okay, I've really got to stop there. I've got to stop because otherwise I will literally just do this throughout the entire thing. Actually, I see no reason why I have to stop. You're all choosing to listen to this. That's your own fault. Okay, that was funny. I didn't realise you regained control in time to move around whilst still being in the sliding animation. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop trying not to hum this because it's really good music. If you're not listening, well, okay, I mean, if you are listening to it, I apologise because I'm probably, depending on how close a time you manage to guess to when I hit start, it's either slightly or very out of time. And I'm fairly certain... Actually, I take that back. There's a chance I might actually be able to play this whilst doing stuff. Because the people playing this don't own the rights to it. Because it's Nintendo. And from what I've seen, or from what I've heard, it seems like... Well, it seems like Nintendo can be awful with kind of fan versions of games, from what I've heard. But that they seem to be somewhat alright with music usage. Don't know, might be wrong. I think they kind of mostly realise that all publicity is good publicity, aside from when it comes to fan games. But again, I know actually nothing about that particular story. Maybe there was a very good reason for them to be against the fan game. I don't know. I figure I might as well sell a lot of stuff to Melody Foxtrot. Kind of for the irony. The fact that... Why can I not use certain items? That's weird. Oh, yeah, just like... Okay, can I try and use this now? Okay. There we are, extra imagination point, always nice. I was considering what I should and should not sell. Do I go all out and sell models? Honestly, there's no real reason not to. Because, like, yeah, in a normal game, I might be slightly reticent to do so. Because, like, it makes sense to save the coins in, like, a form where I guarantee I won't lose them on death. However, of course, this is hardcore LU. That doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to spring shoe it up. Yeah, it's 6 spring shoes. Which is more than I've gone previously. Gonna get notion potions, because... that's not worth it, actually. I won't have enough. Oh, no, so I'm thinking Crux Prime. But honestly, I won't be doing that much that requires, like, a lot of imagination in Crux Prime. I can't even... I feel it's just going to be a nice thing to have on me. Okay. Can check out that, save inventory space. I like having healing bananas on me, because it's nice to have something that restores just 2 HP. Because then I don't need to feel bad for using something more expensive. And yeah, I'm wasting all my money on this stuff. There's not much else to spend it on. Honestly, the amount of health I just got probably is overkill. Because most of the time that won't come in useful. And I might want to have saved some more money for barbecue chicken wings. Potentially. I want to know whether or not that's in the actual music for this game. Also, did she just comment we smell like cannon powder because we came from Hellstorm? I like that. Yep. Not only have you got me whistling, you've now got me singing. Couldn't get much worse, could it? You want to see some speedrun strats? I'm wondering what the... Yeah, I would be interested in just timing fastest ways from place to place around the tower. Because there's no reason they need to be the routes I'm taking. I feel like this... Well, I say this probably is the fastest, but then, on the other hand, I don't get any speed boosts. So this is shorter than any other route. But yeah, no speed boosts. Can potentially get minor slope speed in certain areas. Actually, I made a comment the other day about getting slope speed sideways off of something, not contributing to forward momentum. And it doesn't in the instance you do it. But actually, depending on how air resistance works in this game, it might. I might have been wrong about that. I still suspect it probably wouldn't, but maybe. Or because it's the fact it's not just air resistance, it's your ability to change direction whilst in the air that would kind of all affect that. I'd have to think about the maths behind it. And honestly, I don't know how easy the maths behind it would be, if I think about it. Alright, so the one annoying thing is, wow, my room gets hot, and I don't normally tend to open the windows whilst I'm doing this, just in case I'm noisy and people, well, in case I'm noisy and annoy people, or conversely, in case people judge me for being that guy who thinks he's a streamer. which, okay, is arguably valid. How did... I must have missed, like, the first 2 attacks I did. The thing probably hadn't spawned in on the first 2 attacks, because otherwise I shouldn't be on 25 by the end of that. I should be on a multiple of 3. Also, I gotta say, that is my favourite speed strat. The casual just walking off and completely ignoring the thing I have to do. Or completely ignoring finishing it off because got enough score. Doesn't matter. I wasn't paying attention to where I was meant to be going. So I like how simultaneously everyone is sending us some kind of like their personal prove themselves to me challenges. But simultaneously we're also meant to be just passing information from leader to leader. It's kind of like... Why are you... Yeah, I don't know. If this information's like really urgent... Seems odd that you're getting us to like do stuff as we go. Also seems odd that Overbuild can do all of this, but he can't build a mobile phone to communicate to people. Like, walkie-talkies exist in the game. The Foreman's radio is an item that exists. You literally can radio people in the game. So, like, maybe Mr. Ree is the only person in LU with the capability of wireless communication. Because, I mean, for all we know, Nexus Naomi can't do wireless communication either. Could just be entirely wired within the floors and everything of the tower. For anyone hoping to blackmail me at any point in the future with awful recordings of my singing, good luck. I know I'm bad. I would like to spend more time trying to get good at singing at some point. Let's pick up a free imagination brick whilst we're here. I'm in the mood for that. I shouldn't be, because it takes time, and it's a non-difficult mission. Where's the starting thing? I've now gone 360. I am so bad at LU. It's around... I couldn't see the smashable. The reason I couldn't see the smashable was because it's around there. Our speed strat time. You see all those strats? Okay. I so nearly mucked that up because I was trying to just not stop walking and just go in a row. Come on. Oh no, you're kidding me. I forgot I still had Quixsicle speed. Oh, that was so bad. Well, that was a very, very low IQ ninja move. We seem to get a lot of those in streams, don't we? This isn't a stream. You know what I mean. When I play LU. I'm still in the mood of like treating this channel as primarily a channel where I live stream stuff. Despite the fact that I do put out a fair amount of content here that isn't a live stream. Yeah, I should live stream more of stuff like this on here. guess the reason I don't is because I get real-time feedback that watching Hardcore LU is boring. Which is something I guess I know, but I still feel if I'm doing a run and someone's saying this is boring, I feel obligated to do something more interesting or more engaging. Which was literally the opposite of the point of this channel. This channel was just, if you want LU content without maybe the same informational content as my normal videos, come here. That was not what it ended up being. Yeah, I get too much enjoyment out of whistling. Hey, that's a good get. That was Rammer. It's a good find. Okay, yeah, we're on this mission. Okay, cool. I'm going to, yeah, pet cove it up first, I think. It's the game plan. I wonder if it's possible to quick build the quick build, but underneath when that an ape might spawn on top of. I wonder if it's possible to quick build that with the ape there and survive. And don't think that's going to be something I try in a Hardcore LU run anytime soon, but I'd be interested in knowing if it's possible. Yes, so I'm going to pet cove it first, then we'll get the benefit out of those extra spring shoes I bought, or at least hopefully we will, which is completing the mission for... Forget the person's name. I keep trying to say Epsilon Starcracker and it's not. It's shooting the thing down from the tree, but it's quite hard to shoot down from the tree. Because you don't have anything that can target upwards. However, do you really believe that will stop me? I mean, lag might stop me. Any fans of the... I mean, obviously, you can't reply to me now, but any fans of the 8-bit big bands in here? Very much enjoy me a little bit of big band music. Big fan. Yeah, I don't know the notes well enough to pull that off correctly. Not that that stops me most of the time, in fairness. Okay, so the idea is that lots of things in LU do damage in quite a wide... If they have AoE, they do damage upwards as well. Alright, so I'm gonna... Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna drag this onto me. I'm gonna... If I fail, I'm gonna attempt to hit 5. Ah, but it worked. Yeah, so I'm fairly certain you can't hit 5 from up there. But yeah, that was what those were bought for. Rad Eccles. Dang it. That was where the E in Epsilon Star Crackle was coming from. I had none of the rest of it correct. And I'm not pretending I worked that out. That was literally just because it said it there. Who's the other... Oh, Milo Snack pitching. Hey, it's Forbidden Valley over there. That's cool. I meant to say Gnarled Forest, but there is also Forbidden Valley over there, so... I was wrong, but I was also still right. Oh, I missed out on the music for here. That's sad. But, can live with that. I should find out what music I can and cannot play on something like this. Because I, like, genuinely, just whistling along to a tune puts me in so much of a better mood, but it's kind of awful when you guys have no idea what it is I'm even meant to be whistling. Like, I have so many misclicks. Wait. That was weird. Huh. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, I'm just saying, Nintendo has lots and lots of good music. Like, most of the Mario theme pieces, most of them are all bops. Like Zelda has loads and loads of bops. I guess just yeah, I mean, it's why I listen to it, I guess, but video game music in general is brilliant. Come on. Pathfinding RS. No. I panicked and did it too soon because I thought I was going to do it too late. Hit the edge, very nearly fell off. Fortunately, LEGO minifigures are very good at accelerating mid-air. Nobody knows quite how they do it, but they seem to excel at it. And so yeah, I don't think if I'm going to these places and somewhat walking around them, I don't think I need to go for any extra XP for the time I reach Crux Prime. I'll complete this mission whilst I'm here. I'm fairly certain I don't need to do it for my pets to be able to dig. But you know what? Doesn't hurt. And it might be more live accurate. I wonder if I could get that by clipping through. because there's the imagination brick in Forbidden Valley that you can. Also, consider how small some of these trees are. Like, they're all like fully fledged trees, but they're not that much taller than I am. I guess scale in LU, you kind of have to accept scale in LU is weird, given how high you can jump. Like, I can compare it to the height of me. I can also compare it to the height I can jump. Could also compare it to the size of my bunny, if I think about it. So that's pretty large. Or I could compare the scales of the different dragons, because that varies quite largely. I didn't actually talk to her. Well, wow, that was a small brain play from me, but it's one that makes literally no difference. I was hoping it would tell me the amount of XP I'd get from handing it in. Did not, but I mean, regardless, I'm not handing it in. So, but yeah, I need to decide a point where, when I've reached that stage, I will say, okay, now time to go back and collect all the easy achievements. I also need to remember to pick up that backpack flag. Look at me, getting imagination in advance. I really hope that's not, like, deafening for people when I'm whistling. You know, every time I come here, I get more of these. That was the wrong number. I want to get 18, I think. Well, nah, I can. I was considering 18 because when I hand in the mission, that would be 20. But of course, I will almost certainly use one before that point. It's interesting how there are certain points in playing LU where I almost always have the same amount of imagination. Or like certain stats. Just because I guess, yeah, a large amount of any of these challenges is consistency, but it's hard for you to have a gaming challenge that's not just in the end about consistency, because the harder you get as a challenge, the more it's, like, to some extent it's always going to be a case of, even if you add random elements, it's still about consistency, because you're still probably not going to do it. Okay, nice. You're still probably not going to do it on the first attempt. Assuming nothing's going to chase me, that's good. Whoa! Whoa! That was absolutely brutal! No, you can get lost. I should have just kept running, because I can keep running, I can avoid this. was trying to be extra careful. I also do find it funny how I did survive the first shot. I just didn't knock me far enough back. I'm going to keep going. Specifically because I want to practice this trick up ahead. Well, yeah, I want to get all the flags. All the heart flags. I might as well go for that. I died once to some really, really, really awful luck. I mean, I guess technically not luck. I guess technically I could have predicted that the Admiral was going to do that. Because they do have... Yeah, the issue was I did predict that something might do that. And so I was paying attention for a little while in advance and then let my guard down. Because like, I seem to remember I even said, like, okay, is anything going to follow me? And then nothing did. But that was because the Admiral was stuck in his attack animation. Still aggroed on me. Just quite a ways back. Okay. So let's go for this. This particular trick has, from memory, a fair amount of leeway. The issue is that the last time I did it too well from memory. Okay, I'm gonna also pick up some bananas. In possibly one of the more dangerous places to pick up bananas. Yeah. Don't care about Ecom's mission. Well, I think Ecom's gives me a gun. Like, what am I going to do with that? I can't use it. That was bad. I love how I, like, do this every time. I didn't even realise that the thing wasn't implemented for ages. Well, I didn't ever until it got implemented. Because I just, like, the first time I did it, I was like, haha, I will be a pro gamer and show off. And then I did it every single time since then. Because it's like... I don't know. I didn't even do it thinking that, like, you were meant to go one particular way there. Like, I guess it was just my... I don't know how I thought you were meant to do it. Because I assume I didn't think you were meant to do that. Maybe I had processed it and I just didn't really check whether or not that thing was there. Doing this for the free imagination. Pointed. This mission always feels so odd. Just a random imagination point out of nowhere. And I didn't mean to do that. Alright. So time for the first new trick of the run. Gotta remember which tree to aim at. I think I aim between those two trees. And I need to remember to do this to the right height. There we are. No, do not fall down too far. There we are. So yeah, for some reason, there's basically a little ledge down here along which you can walk. You've got to be careful not to aggro that guy. Be careful not to get stuck. It's a place I'm confident in my ability to get up. I forget where it is, if it's further along. Which I'm a little bit scared of. Because I don't know at what point the ape's going to start attacking me. Okay, I can get from here. I don't think I even need this Quixocle, but I mucked that up. Okay, no, that's fine. Maybe I need to start from higher up? Come on, let's go. You're kidding me. How am I actually... This, like, I did this first time. I was, like, really concerned this was going to be a really difficult thing when I... Let's look. So do I go higher up over the edge here? I don't know if I need to be doing all of those as ground pound jumps. Very much do not remember. But there we are. Okay. I don't remember if you can get back in bounds from this. Uh-oh. Okay. I'm gonna hope... Oh no, that's not good. That's really not good. I can still get out of this at least. Can I? This feels escapable. Have I actually soft-locked myself? I think I have. In fairness, I had already soft-locked myself, I think. By this point. By the point I mucked up that jump. So what I was trying to do was I was trying to get over here before the physics loaded in. How it's literally such a short jump. There's got to be a way up here. It's got to be like somewhere along here I can stand higher than I should be able to. Something like that. Of all the ways. So I guess this run had already been lost, but seriously? Like, I was kind of like, I can keep going. Okay, can I go any further down? Or is this like the very limit? So I do still have spring shoes. The issue is, spring shoes don't always do what one would hope they would. I can try some tech I found recently. It won't actually help me get through here, but it might help me get up this slope. And this tech is basically that you have a slight period of being able to do something after you hit 5. I mucked it. And now I am... Now, even if I can recover this, I will need to buy... Shoot! I don't think there's any way of getting out of this that I can think of. I'm racking my mind. There are many, many, many LU glitches stored in this place. Unfortunately, none of them are springing to mind. Certainly none of them are to hardcore LU feasible. However, I don't need much height. Oh, for anyone who has been listening along, yes, it has ended. Wow, if I can actually pull this off, this is going to be quite impressive. So there is a small, somehow somewhat standable area over here. And I'm hoping... Yes! Okay, that was surprisingly difficult to manage. So what I'm really just hoping for is I can find some area where I can run in faster than the terrain will load in. Or faster than physics will load in. I hope I can abuse ghosting. Ooh, is this bad? This could be bad. I think I very much mucked up and gotten myself soft-locked again, having escaped that previous soft lock. nothing interesting through there. Because there's a chance. There's a very, very low chance that kill plane doesn't extend this far. Strongly, strongly bet it does, though. And you don't teleport to vendors or anything like that when you interact with them. Gonna take a bet. Okay, that paid off. For a very, very short period of time. Ah, well. So I should go over into Uchu and, well, no, what I really should do is I should just look at the video I did getting up there previously. I should just play that back to see the route I took. But fortunately, I now know the guy won't aggro me. I think, though, I might call it here because we have died twice now. See if we can manage 3 for 3. I say no. I want to die in a better way. I want to. The game assumes, I think, that you can't remain on this, so it only damages you the once. Because I don't think they're aware of the ground pound trick. And with that, I've been Intro You, and I will see you next time. Also, Stan, thanks for done on DLU, and as always, I say this is a standard thing, but it really, really, really still holds true, even though I've said it many, many times before. Huge, huge, huge shout out to devs, because without them, none of this is possible. And with that said, actually, goodbye. Yeah. Bye.